Welcome to the Maine Science Podcast. I'm Kate Dickerson. We've got something just slightly different this week, a conversation about a statewide program. I spoke with Angela Oechslie, Program Director for Project Login, which is a program of Educate Maine. Project Login is a longtime partner of the Maine Science Festival, and they've been running the Maine Science Festival's showcase event Tech Night for years. I've known Angela for years as well, and was really happy to explore her work with Project Login in our conversation. Angela and I mention a number of different online resources, and I've included links to those sites in the show notes. Welcome to the Maine Science Podcast. I thought we might be able to start off with you giving us a quick overview of Project Login, and then I'm going to do a deep dive with you about exactly what that means.
Yeah, so Project Login is a program of Educate Maine. We exist to create sort of the talent development pipeline and technology for Maine. What we really want to do is be Maine's leading resource for connecting anybody interested in IT and computing or computer science or technology jobs to the employers in our state, and to attract and retain folks from out of the state, but really to give folks the skills and the sort of network to be able to get those jobs.
So maybe the first thing we can do, and I think you and I know what it is because we've been partnered up for a long time with the Science Festival and with Project Login. Maybe you could step through very simply and explain IT and computer science and technology in the context of what you mean by that.
So Project Login, when I say IT and computing jobs, Maine has a lot of good jobs and a lot of smart kids and adults capable of doing those jobs. And Project Login is all about bringing them together. So for example, if somebody says, I want to work in IT, information technology. Well, what is that? That's a lot. That sort of is a generalized and large encompassing field because it could be a lot of different things. But when a student says, I want to work in IT or I really like technology, it's about more than just being a consumer of the technology. It's about being a creator of the technology. It's about understanding how the technology works so that they can create it, repair it, fix it, that sort of thing. And honestly, computer science is this underarching sort of what I say it's a 21st century skill. It provides these skills necessary for innovation. It translates to high wage, high paying in-demand jobs, but it really emphasizes the increasing necessary community involvement, students' future opportunities around any sort of job, no matter what sector it is, are actually going to be foundational in some computer science skills. And what I mean by that is computer science education is important for people of any age, but really acquiring these skills that are sort of transferable around systems and platforms allow collaboration to more than just do projects together, but develop these skills to sort of enhance something that might not even exist yet. We're preparing kids for jobs of the future.
So I'm going to give you an example based on my age of what people may think computer science is, and you're going to correct me. Ready? Design a hangman game to play on a green screen computer using the Fortran language. That is not what you're talking about, right?
Not exactly. No. So beyond even getting onto the technology or a device per se to let's code something, there's going to be some skills in problem solving, project management, design thinking, things like that actually encompass computational thinking and computer science. So students will do some of these activities long before they even pull out a device, right? And I don't want people to think that computer science is just coding. It's not somebody in the dark in a black hoodie typing away at a computer by themselves. Like computer science is way more than that. And building an app or a game on a green screen or something like that using in your example, an old archaic language is not what we're talking about. We're talking about sort of forward-thinking, fast-paced, changing languages happen all the time in computer science. And so it's obviously, again, students know more than we do, and they can explain something in a way that's very simplistic. And we have these translational skills where they can, really go back and forth between what they're thinking in their mind and what it could really be. And so, honestly, they're the best people to create things of the future.
So I've heard a lot of people in computer science, both at UMaine and the UMaine system, talk about Minecraft, for example, as a really good example of something that someone my age may not see as coding, but is actually this great introduction into what coding nowadays means and what computer science can be. And I'm going to guess it has something to do with kind of the world building that can happen with Minecraft. And I'm picking Minecraft because I have a feeling that most of our audience, if they haven't played it, they've seen someone do it. Is that the kind of computer science? Like, we don't really know it's there, but it could be something like that.
Totally. I mean, I actually like this example because some of the early exposure that kids are getting to computer science is through something like Minecraft, and parents or others that aren't aware of the platform think that they're playing a game, that it's gaming, and that it's a lot more screen time and like what is happening. But honestly, it's developing skills around making modifications, working with team members. I've literally sat over the shoulder of somebody playing Minecraft, right? I use that in quotations, air quotes, because they're not really playing. They're actually walking through a whole bunch of very specific, concrete, computational thinking, strategies. And they've literally acted like a project manager to folks that are in their world, and who's going to do what to build the next piece, and who's going to acquire this to get them to the next level, and what can I do to rewrite this line of code to make a modification so that I get something that I need, or something that a resource, let's say.
So Project Login, as part of Educate Maine, is trying to help develop these computational skills. So what we would back in the dark ages consider computer skills, but they're really just 21st century skills. Why is it so important for Maine? Like, what is it about? Is it the rural nature of Maine? Is it that we're spread out? Is it that we don't have a history of this kind of technology? Why does Project Login need to do this?
Yeah, so Project Login, basically, we realized a few years ago that there was quite a big gap in the number of technology jobs that were going unfilled, and not enough people to fill those jobs, and that not enough students or diverse folks across the state thought that they could get jobs in technology in Maine. They thought they had to leave and go to Boston or California. And they're not aware of the opportunities that exist here. And so, yes, sometimes they are not exposed to computer science or technology in their schools because of their rural nature, or we've seen a technology shift in terms of where people have access to better broadband, for example. Those schools are offering computer science. And so Project Login, this program is really meant to work with a bunch of different partners and partnerships across the state to advocate for, increased broadband, to advocate for computer science in all Maine schools for all Maine kids, to address the equity challenges, and to be equitable to all kids, no matter where the zip code, wherever they live. And it's important for Maine because there are good companies here. We're poised right now to actually be growing the sector over the next 5 to 10 years. And we want to be able to meet the needs of employers. We don't want them to leave. And we want our kids to know about the opportunities. So really, Project Login can be aspirational as well, can expose students to the opportunities through some career exploration, through some events, through hands-on things. Like, we've done a lot of those sort of in-person hands-on events. Part of our partnership with the Maine Science Festival has always been the tech night, my favorite part, where we take over the Maine Discovery Museum, and they get to do hands-on workshops, and they're learning from our partners in the community. And to be honest, it's harder in the middle of a pandemic to change that programming, as you might imagine. But we've had to do some different things to get the kids online or try new things if they can't be in person with us for an event.
I think something that would surprise a lot of people is all the places where IT and computer science jobs are in Maine. It's not like we have a bunch of little Googles running around. Can you, off the top of your head, list, 4 different areas where computer science and IT are vital for how that company or that industry runs that people might be surprised about?
Sure. It's across all sectors. We want to be clear about that. There's no one tech sector. Maine does not have a lot of tech companies. What Maine does have is a lot of jobs, companies with tech jobs. I would say banking is one area. There's lots of banking partners, financial institutions in Maine that have a need for computer science, software development, engineers, programmers, and that sort of thing. But also, it's in the higher ed space. It's in bioscience and biopharma. It's in healthcare. There's so many different healthcare systems and organizations across Maine that rely on computer science. They have their IT and what they call IS departments that are like larger than some other departments in the healthcare field. There's so many different things. There's WEX is a financial global payments solutions company, and they need so many tech folks to work the behind the scenes of how that all operates, their systems and their applications and all of that. So there's so many. You could go to the Project Login website and look at the sort of companies that we're talking about, the careers opportunities and the founders and some of the people that support the work of educating kids and getting them exposed to the work.
So I've been lucky enough to have tours of a few different manufacturing companies in Maine, and I'm always struck by how much they rely on computers, either in the actual, the use of robotics to actually build whatever it is they're building. I'm thinking of Pratt and Whitney, or in the design of just making sure that they have all of the parts and things that they need. So kind of, I don't want to say just in time, because that's totally aging me for when I was in grad school, but kind of the idea of making sure that everything that they need at the facility is there, and how do they most efficiently design their throughput so that there's no wasted money or space or materials. And, I know there's facilities that do that. So it seems to me that this type of stuff is integrated in so many different areas, which is why it's hard to let people know that it's everywhere, because people fall into it, right? And it seems to me like what you're trying to do is make sure people know about it, so it's not that they fall into it, but they seek it out.
And honestly, I'm glad you brought up the manufacturing thing, because a lot of kids or students don't think there's a job for me in manufacturing. I'm going to go work in the technology, or I'm going to be a CNC machinist and I'm going to program all of the things to do, but so many jobs that even traditionally in our old sort of manufacturing have evolved and now are completely reliant on computers, on software, on the skills, the higher skills. I think of GE and Bangor and some of the other like large manufacturers, like they can't do their jobs without the assistance of machinery, computers. So
one of the most important things, this is my insider baseball knowledge, one of the most important things that I know that you do is work with teachers, so that number one, they're not scared of computer science and information technology, but number two, so that they can more easily explain it to their students, what it is that's out there. Is it just a matter of introducing them to the ideas of computer science, or are you doing more than that?
I think we're doing more than that. And it's very specific to ensuring that K-12 educators have not only the sort of knowledge themselves and the ability to translate what computer science is and means for their students, but, gets them the support they need to be able to integrate computer science into their schools. So a lot of what we do is around teacher professional development. We work a lot with Maine Science Alliance as the code.org regional partner to provide some of that high quality computer science professional development for teachers K-12. But then also once they're sort of expanding computer science in their schools, we want to work directly with schools in all 16 counties in Maine to make sure that every Maine kid's getting access, that it's not just for gifted and talented or as an elective or as a special. We want everybody to be able to have these skills so that they, are competitive. Again, they're foundational skills. It's very important.
So you mentioned code.org. Can you explain what that is, please?
Code.org is our national nonprofit partner. They actually are funded by, Yahoo and Facebook and Microsoft, and they actually exist to make sure that everybody is getting exposure to computer science and that the teachers have what they need, again, to be able to teach computer science in their classrooms. So code.org provides curriculum, which is completely free. They have facilitators, and our facilitators that we contract with are trained by code.org to actually work with educators in order to run the different pieces of the training to get the kids involved in the different aspects of the curriculum, which isn't always in front of a device. Sometimes it's with unplugged activities as well.
Computer science and IT, there's not enough people in Maine to do it in the outside of education. So in education, it seems to me there's probably people who want to teach it, but they don't even know where to start. Is that a role that Project Login can fill to help teachers get to the point where they can actually effectively teach it?
Yeah, the good news is teachers don't have to have experience in computer science. They already know how to be a teacher. They already have, pedagogy and like classroom instruction management and like all of that sort of thing. Some of our best teachers that have taken the training have actually been like social studies teachers or English teachers. They don't have to have a background in computer science themselves. What we give them is the tools necessary to sort of run through different computational thinking and computer science lessons. We provide those lessons. Code.org does, and we help facilitate. Again, they don't have to have this background or this knowledge or experience. What they have to do is be, willing to participate in our workshops and take in all of the information and go back and try. Because guess what? They're also a lead learner. They don't have to have it all figured out. They can learn right along with their students.
So why don't teachers need to have a background to teach the subject? Is it because it is so foundational and it's not like you're going to program in this class, you're not going to program how to open a door from 50 feet away with a special key. It's more like this is what programming is. Like, is that the reason they don't need to have their own background in computer science?
So in Maine, there's no requirement to have like a certification or a background in computer science in order to teach that. For example, there's some endorsements right around specific technology if you were going to be a tech integrator, but there's not for somebody that's going to run a computer science course. And that's just the state of Maine Department of Education has said that there's no requirement for that. So you're trying to integrate or you're trying to introduce concepts of computer science and computational thinking. And so as a teacher, when they introduce any new lesson or any new concept, they're going through sort of the problem solving process themselves. They're going through presenting different materials and they're sort of, trial and error. And so when I say that the teachers are also leading learning right along with their students, it's because they're not going to give the answer away. If a student gets stuck on a problem, the teacher's there to say, oh, well, what do you think about that? Or what might you do differently? Oh, your program's not running like you thought it was. Let's debug that. Let's figure that out. And they're just there to be over their shoulder, not to give the answer, but to actually have the student walk through the process of figuring it out for themselves.
So it's more inquiry based in that way. All right. So how did you get into this? This is you talk about this so easily and so fluidly, and I happen to know it's not your background. So how did you get into this?
That is a good question, and I do not have a background in that. I actually came in through this in a very different way. My background is actually workforce development and economic development. So I have several degrees in business management, employee, like human resource management, organizational leadership and communication. And honestly, I was working in the nonprofit sector and I was doing a lot of workforce development. And prior to working at Educate Maine, I was actually working on a project to develop some short-term training around technology jobs, around technology skills. And there was this Maine is IT sort of grant program, and it was going through the Maine Community College system. And I actually worked down sort of a curriculum with the folks over there, and we integrated some soft skills, or what I like to call emotional intelligence skills, around, communication in the workplace when you're trying to work in IT. And then they had some very technical training and they got certifications like the CompTIA A+. So that sort of work early on led me to sort of specialize in the IT sector in Maine. And I started learning a lot more about the needs and the growth areas. And so it was actually a perfect fit for me to, come over to Educate Maine in Project Login, because they were doing a lot of that same work with employers to sort of listen to them, find out what their needs are. What are the gaps as far as they're seeing for skills, as far as they're seeing for, graduates coming out of the higher ed system, and what can we do to work with the colleges and the universities to actually prepare students for the employers.
So it sounds like you really were able to use your workforce development background, marry it to understanding the IT needs in Maine, and then dive right in with Project Login and Educate Maine.
Yeah. And then I've had to learn a lot as I go. So I've learned from everybody that I meet along the way, and I pick up things, and I've taken courses as well, or I've actually demonstrated augmented reality or virtual reality along with our partners. So when that happens, I'm exposed to stuff just like the students and employers in Maine. And so it's been great.
Do you have a favorite curriculum that you walk teachers through to both kind of give them that aha moment, but also like, how cool is this?
Don't make me choose a favorite. That's
okay. I'm sorry. Could you pick one that you really, really like? How's that?
We like to say curriculum agnostic. We want students to find what's going to work for their school and their students. So we encourage them to do some exploration around different things. We do obviously like the code.org. The middle school curriculum is called Discoveries. And I do like that a lot because there's about 6 different units that really goes through the discovery of some computer science essentials. And the last unit is 6, and it's physical computing. And it always uses like the Adafruit little circuit playgrounds, which is a combination of computer science and like circuitry. So sort of like electrical engineering. You can program this computerized thing to do sounds and lights and different activities. And so that's always a fun one for sure.
So for that one, do you start with what you said, no screen, no device?
Yeah, so you would the first few lessons are what we call unplugged activities, where you go through different activities and you're not even connected to your device. You're running through you're learning different aspects and computational practices, but you're not even on a device yet.
So how many people are doing that and are wondering where on earth is the computer science? And you have to tell them to wait.
Oh, I still think that they figure it out, but they are very anxious to like, when can I touch it? When can I do this? When am I going to be? And they also think sometimes, and I'll go back to the middle schoolers because they're my favorite. And they're also the ones that I spend the most time with. They think that they're just going to build the next app or create the next thing like immediately. So when you start walking them through an unplugged activity or taking them through a few lessons or units that aren't exposing them to what they need, they try to rush and get right through it. And so some teachers actually have to like lock parts of the curriculum so students don't work ahead because they want to like make sure that they're getting everything.
And that's what you were saying before about teachers know how to teach. I know that you have a program for teachers that they can sign up for.
Correct.
So could you talk about that a little bit?
We have a year-long professional development program that's in collaboration with code.org, like I mentioned. For example, we're going to have applications open until, I think, April for the next coming session, which will start in the July, in the summer, for a week-long sort of summer institute. CS Summer of Fun, I call it. And then they have the rest of the year leading up. And they have virtual engagement, online learning, and they have sometimes we meet in person. So we'll be seeing if that happens, like on a Saturday, professional development workshop. So applications, they're open now. If they went to code.org under the professional learning program and put in their zip code, they would get the information for Maine. And we're actually leading it for New Hampshire and Vermont this year as well. So we have what I call Northern New England that are going to be joining us.
So how many teachers can you take in that?
That's a very good question. I have set goals for taking a minimum of 40. We could take more than that. We do have a number of facilitators in each of the sections. So we have more in the middle school curriculum discoveries, and we have we have 2 facilitators for the high school curriculum CS principals. And again, we will take folks, most of them will qualify for a scholarship. And if they don't, the price is very reasonable and we can work with them on that.
Teachers, students, workforce development. So the only people that I can think of that leads out are, or that we haven't talked about yet, are people who are already in the workforce and want to change fields.
Yeah, career changers.
What was that? Career changers? Is that?
Yeah.
And I have a memory that you are involved, like the Project Login has that as well. Yes? No? Do I have that wrong?
We do still do some of that. And that work is through our employer partnerships. So when we're working with our employers, we're promoting their internship opportunities to folks at higher eds or even the K-12. But they're also telling us, like, here's the skills that we need. And so, for example, if there's somebody willing to develop those skills either on a short-term basis or get credentials or certifications that poise them to get these positions, we try to make that sort of match. So we do try to expose Maine companies to talent that they might not be aware of. That could be, again, somebody may be coming from one field but looking to get into IT or computing. And so we want to make sure that they know about opportunities and directly connect the future workforce.
So do you have an example of a career changer?
Yeah, there's been a bunch of different examples, and we do actually have success stories on our website under Circuits of Success, so people can go there and check that out. But I'll think of one. I think there was somebody actually, he was a social studies teacher, And this is my favorite story because he had actually asked for his student's portfolio. And he's like, I'm still waiting on that. And the student said, I already gave it to you. And he's like, I don't have anything. And like, he was talking about a physical binder of a portfolio. And the kid's like, I gave you the URL. And the teacher's like, show me what you're talking about. And he pulled up the website that he created, and his whole portfolio was online. And the teacher said, how did you do that? Tell me what you did. And he told him how he started learning and teaching himself how to do it. Well, on nights and weekends, the teacher started doing it and teaching himself programming and taking some like Khan Academy and some different short-term trainings and things like that. And lo and behold, he goes and works at Tyler Technologies. So in that case, we lost a teacher to the private tech sector in Maine. However, I still think it's a success story because he still volunteers with the students. So there's also been some other ones where somebody might have had a career, let's say, in nonprofits, and they really wanted to go into technology. And so how do you make that move from this background in sort of nonprofits world to like the private sector? And so really it's about making them be aware of how you can get your foot in the door. A lot of times in Maine, especially these technology jobs, it's about who you know. It's about how you heard about the job. It's sort of like demonstrating your skills to get yourself that foot in the door. And so if you attended, let's say, a Women in Tech event at IDEX, and they knew that, and you showed their interest and you mentioned it in their cover letter, you're most likely going to get this interview, right? And then at the interview, you have the chance to explain projects and, your experience and why you really want to make this change. And so we try to make a lot of those connections as well.
So there must be a lot of really cool synergy when people switch careers like that. I was thinking of the example with the teacher and Tyler Technology, because Tyler Technology does a bunch of software development for education systems, right? Like that is going to be a huge asset for them to have a former teacher on their staff, I would think.
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. A big portion of their stuff is for schools or municipalities. And so having that sort of inside knowledge or this idea of how did they use it in their former role or life? And so like, how can they improve that now for user experience on their end? Especially if it's a sort of an application that they're now, poised with improving, they can totally bring that background and that knowledge to the project.
So how would you sum up your work with Project Login?
I say that every day is different. And what Project Login does is sort of works in three sort of buckets: that K-12 education space, the higher education and training space, and then that professional development bucket. So every day I'm doing something in one of those three veins. We do work with communities and school districts to help them implement a complete CS curriculum, or what I call a computer science pathway. So we've done some script workshops regionally where districts will come for a 2-day workshop, and we facilitate this whole process to get them thinking about what are their values, what's their goals, set up some short-term and long-term goals around developing an actual computer science pathway for their school district. And that's been really good.
Do you have a harder time in the more rural areas of Maine getting them to be able to even think about that? Because I know broadband is an issue and connectivity is an issue. Has that been a challenge?
It has been. We have had some luck recently. We do actually have some folks in Holton area, Holton Hodgson, leading the way as far as computer science expansion in Aroostook County. And we actually took one of those curriculum coordinators and got them trained to be a script facilitator as well, so that we can expand in doing some more of those workshops in Aroostook and Washington County. Because, it is a little bit harder in the more rural parts of Maine, but it's certainly important.
Does script stand for something?
That's a very great question. It totally does. It's part of the CS for All programming. It is a resource and implementation planning tool, basically. It's a strategic CS for All resource implementation planning tool. It's a framework to guide the teams of district leaders.
So it's a way to introduce a lot of what we just have in this conversation about what CS and information technology really is, so that they can more easily incorporate it into their school?
Absolutely. We should probably put strategic CS for All planning tool for schools in the show notes so that they can look it up. It absolutely is to guide these administrators and school districts in their self-assessment, their visioning, and their goal setting to, expand computer science education.
So in a perfect world, what is your goal? Like every kid in the state has had a computer science class by the year it's incorporated in every school, K through 12 by the year 2025?
That would be a perfect world. Yes.
Okay. So let's do perfect world, and then let's do what you're aiming for real.
And so I think every kid needs to have access and exposure to computer science. That is definitely the goal. By 2025 sounds awesome and doable, hopefully. We got to start somewhere, though, and I think we're going to try to start with every high school offering computer science by hopefully next year or 2023.
Okay, so, and I'm going to add on a goal that you and I need to figure out how to do. I want to have every adult understand what it is. And if that means we have to do a whole bunch of things where they just play Minecraft, that's fine. But I actually think that that's been one of the stumbling blocks with a lot of what I would call technology and science education, is that people who are in charge of making those decisions either think it's what it used to be. You know, like I described that ridiculous Fortran, which, by the way, was an assignment in the computer programming class I had to take in college, or they don't know how it translates to nowadays. So how much are you at Project Login and Educate Maine in general able to do to reach those decision makers? And I don't mean the decision makers in the education field. I mean the other decision makers.
I'd like to say that Project Login Educate Maine has a huge influence on that. I think we hope, and our encouragement and enticement and our work around advocacy and policy is sort of headed down that track, right? To understand, because obviously as soon as we mentioned some of these district leaders or some teachers going through this, as soon as they get their hands on and they go through something, or they play Minecraft, or they do an activity, and then it becomes their light bulb aha moment, they start to see it and feel it, and it makes so much more sense. Then they can turn around and be like the biggest cheerleaders and advocates again for that kind of thing, because they see the difference that it makes. They see the importance of it. But you're absolutely right. They have to have those experiences, and they have to have the introduction or the education themselves to actually make those changes.
Okay, so we're going to include a bunch of links in the show notes. And the other one, the final piece, the final show note link is the Project Login podcast. So if you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with that podcast, that would be really cool.
Thanks. So the Project Login podcast, this is a shameless plug, was created in the fall. It was my idea to pivot during the pandemic to offer the ability of students to learn more about the technology jobs in Maine, to learn about the companies, to learn about the career pathways and education pathways. And so I actually have been interviewing people for, I don't know how many months now. And there's different episodes released every Monday. And you can find the podcast anywhere you get podcasts, or on our website. And it is simply the Project Login podcast. Again, it's meant to be a career exploration tool. We interview everybody from data analysts to software engineers to CIOs and more. So it's been really fun.
Totally going to interrupt you. CIOs are?
Oh, right. So in technology, there's lots of acronyms. A chief information officer, you get to learn about what that is. So they tell us about their career pathways. And we always ask them what their favorite place is in Maine. And it's actually been really fun. And students and teachers are using it in their classrooms, and hopefully lots of people are listening and downloading.
All right. So Maine Science Podcast listeners can check out the Project Login podcast. It's a really great dive into all the hidden areas. Well, what I would call hidden areas, if you don't know, about all the places IT and computer science happen in Maine. Angela, this has been a really great conversation and helpful. And I think trying to serve 3 different masters is really difficult. And I think Project Login actually does a fantastic job with it. The Teen Tech Night, or the Tech Night that you mentioned that we host as part of the Science Festival, is one of the most popular events. I think one of the things that I like most about it is that for the most part, we tell the parents to stay away and just let the kids do this exploration. So maybe once the pandemic times are over, we'll have one just for parents, and we'll tell the kids to stay away so that they can get a sense of what's going on. But I really appreciate your time on this. And I'm actually deeply grateful that you're helping spread the word about what computer science and IT really is.
Thank you so much.
Before we go, some programming news. I am thrilled to announce that the Maine Science Festival will be hosting 6 different online forums from January through March of 2021. We'll host one per month in January and February and 4 in March. This will let us continue to spotlight Maine science, even though we can't get together in person yet. I'm extremely excited about getting out there again to celebrate what's happening in Maine. We'll be using Zoom, and the sessions will be run like the in-person Maine Science Festival forums. Each session will include an overview from each speaker, followed by questions and answers. All the sessions will run for 1 hour. More details can be found on our website, www.mainsciencefestival.org. The Maine Science Podcast has received support from the Maine Technology Institute and is recorded at Discovery Studios at the Maine Discovery Museum in Bangor, Maine. The Maine Science Podcast is produced and edited by me, Kate Dickerson. I received production support from Maranda Bouchard. The Discover Maine theme was composed and performed by Nick Parker.